What is going on, everybody? My name is Austin. Welcome to the channel where we talk about everything comic book related, and today we have DCKO issue number 2. Arguably the biggest event that DC Comics has done in quite a long time. Now, like I said, this is a second issue. If you want to go back and read the first issue, I have a video about that on my channel. It'll be in the top right. But without further ado, let's get right into the issue. So we begin with a flashback with Clark, Lois, Diana, and Bruce playing a game together, similar to how the first issue of this series started. And Clark says, like I had any say in what I wore in that gladiator pit, Mongol picked out the battle gear for us, remember? You think I liked being that exposed? Diana says, like you didn't, Bruce? I saw you flexing in that loincloth, showing off the scars. And Bruce replies, oh, I was flexing, Diana? And she says, hey, I looked good in leather, that's all I'm saying. Lois says, okay, Bruce, you said Tim gave you some non-cape topics. And Bruce says his suggestion was, what would you be if you couldn't be what you are now? No powers, can't be at the same job. He suggested we guess for each other. So Clark, you do Diana, and so on. And Clark says, fine. Diana, if you couldn't be Wonder Woman, I think you'd be a tour guide? Diana laughs and says, what? And Clark says, for national parks or historic sites, showing people the beauty, the humility. Diana sighs and says, acceptable. Bruce, if you couldn't be Batman. Bruce cuts her off and says, yeah, I hate this game. Tim is fired. You'd be a doctor. A bat doctor. Bruce says, okay, Clark, if you couldn't be Superman, you'd be president. Clark looks at him and says, come on, you can't be serious. And Bruce says, oh, I'm serious. And Clark says, if I couldn't be Superman or a reporter, I'd be, I don't know, but you're way off, Bruce. I don't have that in me. And so we come back to the now, the beginning of the second round of the King Omega tournament. The narrator says, this realm before us took 11 billion years to construct, but was carved inside a microscopic white hole where time moves like light. A blink and it exists, history and all. For the champions themselves, though, almost no time has passed between rounds. 32 of them have made it through the first gauntlet. They have had no rest, no pause for contemplation. For them, there will only be the battle, as it should be. Lobo, appearing out of thin air, says, ooh, don't that tickle in all the right places. A voice says, welcome, champions, to the second challenge. I speak as the Heart of Apokolips, your game master. To become the King Omega in his new universe, Darkseid had to take. To collect power from his kind, primordial beings, gods. Here, each of you must do the same, but from your own kind, your fellow champions. Hidden throughout this realm are some of the most powerful items in your universe. This arena is a graveyard of elder gods slain by Darkseid. The items lie in their ruins. When all the items are found, the challenge is over. Whoever is holding an item at that time moves on. Whoever is not, dies. There are only 16 items hidden here, and 32 of you. By the end of this challenge, half of you will be no more. There are no rules of conduct. Nothing matters but winning. And remember this rule above all. Here, in this arena, if you follow the example of Darkseid, you shall be rewarded. Now let the challenge begin. These 16 items in here are the Blue Beetle Scarab, the God Killer Sword, the Whirligog, Adam's Belt, Mother Box, Psycho Pirate's Medusa Mask, Thor's Hammer, Bane's Venom, a Speed Force Ring, the Power Rings, a Genie Pen, the Claw of Horus, the Soul Taker Sword, the Lasso of Truth, the Cosmic Rod, and one mystery item. The tournament begins and they scatter. Some can sense which item is where. Hawkman senses the Claw of Horus, Cyborg the Mother Box. Others, like Lex, have come prepared. His suit contains more scanners than the 10 most powerful military satellites combined. Infrared, heat, synthetic aperture radar. Within a single second, he maps the landscape, sees where every item is, and blasts off towards the power rings. But Clark is watching, and if there's one thing Clark is determined to do, it's to make sure Lex Luthor does not win. As he races after Lex, he takes a moment to slow the other villains down too. This is why he's here, he tells himself. This is his part, to make sure the villains fail. All of them. But especially Lex Luthor. Meanwhile, at the side of the Adam's Belt, Diana and Etrigan battle. And Etrigan says, to you that belt shall not pass. This demon spawn will kick your ass. I admit, princess, you fight well, but you are no match for... Interrupted by a swift kick to the chest, Diana says, go to hell. And she says, Era, I hate rhymes. Come on, where is the belt? And a voice behind her says, Wonder Woman. There's only room for one big girl in this challenge, Giganta says. But a voice behind her says, you call that big? And it's Joker. He's found the Adam's Belt first, and he says, ta-da! Any last words? And Giganta says, Joker, what are you doing? We're on the same side here. And Joker says, oh right, I forgot. But not before he squashes her like a bug. Connor Hawk and Cheetah try to run away from him, but not before he grabs them and scoops them into his mouth. Slight intermission. I'm so disappointed they chose to kill off Connor Hawk this way. This is so disrespectful. Anyways, continuing. Meanwhile, at the God Killer site, Metamorpho and Plastic Man fight over the God Killer sword, and Metamorpho says, get off me, O'Brien. And Plastic Man says, sorry, Rexy, in preparation for this shindig, I got an upgrade. A sheen of polyphenylene sulfide. Super plastic. Nothing you can make will dissolve it. And Metamorpho says, except maybe itself, as he turns himself into that exact chemical, and he says, polyphenylene sulfide, boiling hot. Thanks for the recipe. Now, that God Killer sword is mine, you freaking loser. Ha! Too slow, Starro says. But not before it's snagged out of Starro's own hands by Speedster Jay Garrick. Nearby, we can see Guy Gardner heading towards a Speed Force ring, and he says, come to Papa. I mean, a man can never have too many rings, am I right? But Guy gets smashed over the head with Harley Quinn's hammer. And she says, Ivy'll love this. Now what the heck do you do? And she puts it on. Elsewhere, we can see Clark fighting Lex Luthor. And Lex said, I'm glad we have this moment, Superman, because I wanted to thank you. See, when you put us all in the Phantom Zone, I expected it to be just a cage. But what you've made it, therapeutic, a big old cosmic couch, beautiful actually. And as I was floating there, I had an epiphany. Clark says, I'm not interested, and Lex says, I figured. Lex opens up his suit and says, you know, it's a good moment to be a kryptonite enthusiast. What with it so much more common these days. I've expanded my collection, plenty to choose from. Purple to drain your life force, black to steal your powers, red, pink, so many uses. But what I'm really going to use them for is to get you to freaking listen for once. So here's my epiphany, Superman. I always thought I hated you because you did too much. You stopped humanity from realizing our potential by saving us from failure. But I was wrong. I get that now. Because what I really hate you for, if I'm being truly honest with myself, is doing too little. So thank you for bringing me to the Phantom Zone. It was revelatory. I wanted you to feel what I felt, so I brought it to you. Lex slashes Clark's hand off and says, in the form of a blade. He continues and says, when I arrived here in the Heart of Apokolips, it gave me a vision of what the universe could be like if I won, of everything remade in my image. I assume it did this for everyone. So what was yours, Superman? A better reality, far better, diseases cured, corrupt governments eradicated, a cultural and technological paradise, am I right? But let me guess, your response to that vision was to reject it? Your goal even now is to just put everything back the way it was at the end of this? In disgust, Lex fires shards of green kryptonite into Clark's body. I know how much you like to listen to heartbeats, so listen now. Do you hear them all up there? Full of longing and fear? They want your vision. Maybe they didn't in another time, but they do in this one, because things have changed. The center has fallen apart. Everyone feels it. In this era, people are begging for a hero who will fix the problems, the wars, the death, the misery, the terror of it all. They want you to save them. What the Phantom Zone taught me is that I do too. But you never will, because deep down, you're a coward, Superman. That was my epiphany. Now excuse me while I do what you won't and save the freaking world. Feel free to sit back and watch. Clark looks up and sees Guy Gardner heading for the Claw of Horus. And he says, look alive, dorks, Guy Gardner for the win. But not before he has yet another weapon snatched away from him by Hawkman. And Carter Hall says, actually, I believe this belongs to me. Meanwhile, at the Mother Box, we see Cyborg say, there you are, mama, talk to me. Meanwhile, at the Soul Taker's sword, we see Wonder Woman and Etrigan fighting it out, while Swamp Thing reaches for Katana's soul sword. We see Lobo run across Bane's venom, and as he puts it on, he's attacked by Starro, who says, bam, freak, sneak attack, hand it over. And Lobo says, you don't even have the muscles to use it. And Starro says, what are you, blind? Starfish are 98% muscle. I'm fucking jacked. And Lobo says, too late, and rips Starro off of him, saying, now get your foul, slimy, but weirdly soft feelers off the main man, as he injects himself with venom. He says, sorry, brother, some got to win, some got to be you. But Starro says another fact about Starfish. We regenerate, Bastich. As duplicates of Starro all say the same thing. We regenerate, Bastich. And these duplicates of Starro don't even go after Lobo. They go after Power Girl, Jay Garrick, Wonder Woman, Firestorm. And he takes control of their bodies. All at once, Starro uses his new host to grab for any items he can. He goes for Supergirl, who holds the Psycho Pirate's mask, and Aquaman, who has the Cosmic Rod. god. Other hosts he sends to stop the champions from finding items altogether. Flash he sends to prevent Black Lightning from discovering the Whirligog. Wonder Woman he sends to take down Zatanna before she can find Thor's hammer. Zatanna in her weird magic voice says, "Diana, free your mind." And Starro says, "Cosmic starfish are immune to magic, abraca dumbass. Your parlor tricks don't work on me, Zatanna." And she says, "Right by your side, Diana, listen to my voice." And Starro says, "It doesn't matter where you are, she's mine." And Zatanna says, "I'm not talking about myself, you ass. Diana, by your side, reach down now." And so she does. She picks up Thor's hammer, ridding all of those characters of Starro. Meanwhile, nearby, we see Guy Gardner going for yet another weapon, the Blue Beetle Scarab, Kajida. But once again, Guy Gardner is too slow, and Jason Todd beats him to the punch. He says, "Not so fast, Ginger," and begins to link with the Scarab. And Kajida says, "Creating Red Beetle Armory." Jason creates two massive cannons and says, "Hey, Joker, how's this for a punchline?" But Harley Quinn with her Speed Force ring runs in and says, "No way, I call dibs." Joker looks down and says, "Man, I love when they fight over me," and shrinks himself down to the size of an atom. Jason says, "Damn it," and Harley Quinn says, "Where the hell'd he go?" Big Barda screams in pain and says, "I haven't felt pain like this since I was in the fire pits. Something hurts." And Joker is inside her brain and says, "Aw, it's all in your head." As the moments pass, more and more items are claimed, until only a few remain, like the Thunder Pen. Vixen races towards the pen, but King Shark meets her there, and he says, "Not so fast, Vixen, that baby is mine." And she says, "Is that so?" And King Shark says, "Yep, I'm a great white. Channel whatever you want. I'm the top of the pyramid, toughest fish in the ocean." And Vixen says, "But see, I can channel the powers of anything on Earth, including Dinosaur Island, where there are way bigger fish than you," as she summons a literal megalodon. After eliminating King Shark, she looks for the pen, but it's not there anymore, but instead has been taken by Etrigan the demon. And he says, "Could it be? A demon and genie team up, I foresee." We see Zatanna retrieve the God Killer blade as she said, "Sword to my hands." We're close. Almost all the items have been found. We have to get the last few before the Legion of Doom does. As we see Lex Luthor heading directly for the power rings. But somebody yells at him from behind. She hits him with the construct of the entire Fortress of Solitude, and Star Sapphire says, "That's payback for what you did to Superman," and goes to collect her prize. She puts on almost all of the power rings and says, "And score one for love." She pulls her hands away from the hydraulic claw cable just in time. And Star Sapphire says, "Nice try, Luthor, but I still have all the power rings." And Lex says, "I did manage to snatch one, the only one I was truly after, the Black Lantern ring." And Star Sapphire says, "Keep it. What good is the black power ring when there are no dead to control?" And Lex says, "You sure about that?" And he begins to summon the dead elder gods that Darkseid killed to obtain his power. Across the island, Clark senses the game coming to a close. They all do. He tries to stand, but the kryptonite shards Lex fired into his body won't let him. Kara comes running to his aid and says, "Cal, here, take the mask. I'll get something else." But Kara is interrupted by an attack from Captain Atom, who takes the mask from her and says, "I'll be taking that. Thanks." Clark tries to rush towards Captain Atom, but before he can even call Captain Atom's name, he feels it, a rumbling, and he just knows. Lex has won. One by one, Lex uses the Elder Gods to take them out. The heroes, Clark's friends, and all the while, Lex never takes his eyes off of him. We go back to the flashback, and Lois says, "Well, Clark, what's your answer? Choose. What would you be if you couldn't be what you are now?" And Clark says, "I don't know, Lo. A fireman?" And Bruce says, "Stop." Clark says, "I wouldn't be a politician, Bruce. It's never even crossed my mind." And Bruce says, "Because you have him, Superman." And Clark says, "What's your point, Bruce?" He says, "My point is you always look to do the most good possible. That's who you are. You're a strategist, same as me and Diana, but in your own way. And right now, your math works." And Clark says, "Why, thanks. Can I have my Superman now, please?" And Bruce says, "No, because things change, Clark. That's what games like this are about, figuring out a new math if one is needed to succeed." Diana says, "Ah, and here I thought they were just talking about relaxing." "And wine," Lois adds. Clark says, "Seriously, Bruce, we're supposed to be having fun here. What's your issue?" And Bruce says, "You know what? You're right. Here, Clark, here's your little Superman back." We go back to the event and Lex says, "It's over, Superman." His hand throbs, his body is one long scream. He tries, though. He tries to figure out some new math, some way. and then suddenly the rules come back to him. Follow the example of Darkseid and you shall be rewarded. The example of Darkseid, who sacrificed not just his hand, but his life to become something more. Clark thinks of the mystery item, one of the only things left unclaimed, and he grabs the kryptonite shard in his shoulder, and just before Lex brings the Elder God's foot down on his body, crushing it, Clark ends Superman. As Lex watches, he says, "Who's the real Superman now, old friend?" But Clark re-emerges from beneath the Elder God's foot and says, "I am Luthor. I'm Superman." And Superman is the mystery item, the Omega Sanction, the power of Darkseid himself. He decimates the Elder Gods just as Darkseid did eons ago, and it feels good. He will stop them all. Luthor, Joker. Lex screams out in rage and says, "No, I had you beat." Clark says, "You lose, Luth." But before Clark can fire, Guy Gardner claims the Whirlagog, finally able to claim a weapon for himself. The Heart of Apokolips says, "Champions, all items have been claimed. The challenge is now over. Those of you without items, you are eliminated. Those of you with items in your possession, congratulations. You move on." Lex laughs and says, "Saved by the bell. See you next round, Superman." And so we know exactly who our final 16 contestants are. Joker, Etrigan the Demon, Jay Garrick, Superman, Hawkman, Lobo, Zatanna, Guy Gardner, Lex Luthor, Harley Quinn, Jason Todd, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Captain Atom, Swamp Thing, and Cyborg. They can all feel their closeness to victory. They have the taste for it now, for the fight, the competition. But the game isn't only being played here. It's being played outside the tournament as well. Time Trapper says the fire pits burn bright with Omega energy as our champions get closer to the center. Soon we may have a new King Omega. There's hope. We just have to continue to hold the time barrier against Darkseid. And Booster Gold says yes, unless we don't. And Time Trapper says, "What do you mean, Booster?" And he replies, "Oh, Time Trapper, you've spent too much time with the Kryptonian. You've become soft in your old age. There's no need for a new King Omega. We already have ours. Me, Darkseid. And it's time I enter the arena." As Darkseid takes over the body of Booster Gold and grabs Time Trapper by the neck. So there won't only be 16 contestants in the next round, there will actually be 17. Booster Gold, who the contestants do not know is actually Darkseid. And just for a little recap, let's go over each weapon that each contestant has. So the Joker has the Adam's Belt, which allows him to change size. Etrigan the Demon has the Genie Pen, which, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what it does. I just assume it does whatever he wants it to do. Jay Garrick, although it wasn't actually shown in the comic itself, winds up with the Lasso of Truth. Superman unlocked the mystery weapon, the Omega Sanction, that grants him with the power of Darkseid. Hawkman got the Claw of Horus. That's obviously his. I don't think I need to explain that. Lobo wound up with Bane's Venom. Zatanna wound up with the God Killer Sword. Guy Gardner wound up with the Whirlagog, which is actually a crazy powerful weapon. Obviously, Lex Luthor, we saw, has the Black Lantern Ring. Harley Quinn with the Speed Force Ring. Jason Todd with the Blue Beetle Scarab. Aquaman with Big Barda's Cosmic Rod. Wonder Woman with Thor's Hammer. Captain Atom with Psycho Pirate's Medusa Mask. Swamp Thing with Katana's Soul Taker Sword. And last but certainly not least, Cyborg with the Mother Box. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of these weapons are super cool combinations. They give these characters super unique abilities that we're not used to seeing them with. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of evil that Joker could get up to with the Adam's Belt. I'm very interested to see Jason Todd with the Scarab. What kind of machinations can this guy create with the Scarab? What kind of insane weapons can he design with the Scarab? I kind of imagine it'll be like that one Punisher comic where he gets the War Machine suit and just starts going crazy. Literally that, but on crack. Anyways, that will be the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think of DCKO issue number 2. What do you think about the event as a whole so far? I will see you guys in the next video.